this short. The Charles River Chamber is really pleased to be able to present this morning a conversation, or this afternoon, a conversation between the two candidates for City Council President. The candidates who will be on the ballot on November 7th. The City Council President is the highest elected official in the city of Watertown. In this case, we have the current incumbent, Mark Sideris, running again for re-election versus Clyde Young, who previously held this position back when Watertown was a town. So he was a previous town council president. So both these gentlemen are familiar with the job and the community and familiar to many people in town. But today we're going to take some time to talk a little bit about economic development issues, talk a little bit about business, and a couple of general questions probably in there as well. First, gentlemen, thank you both for your willingness to serve, for your past service, and for your willingness to step up again. It's such an important thing to be able to have people to step up in our community to serve, and we appreciate it. And before we get into today's questions, I actually wanted to tell you now what my last question of the morning or the event will be, which will be, so you have a little time to think about it. And that is, if you could invite anyone living or dead over to your house for dinner, who would you invite to your house for dinner if you were going to have them come over and just for an evening to tell them who you are and have a conversation with them and learn more about it? So you can think about that one, and everybody can think about their own answers for that question. But let me know who you would like to invite over for dinner, living or dead, and we'll talk about that at the end. But I'd like to start today with a question for Mr. Younger, since you're the one who's challenging Mr. Sideris. Tell us why you're looking to get your old job back, and what is it about the job that Mr. Sideris is doing that you don't like or feel it is necessary for you to run? So, Mr. Younger, great to see you. Thank you for being here today.
I should say that it's not a matter of running against an opponent. It's a matter of what we can stand for and what we could do moving forward. One of the things that I concentrated on last night was planning. And planning is universal in terms of affecting business in every aspect of this community, whether it's schools, the different departments, and also what we can do in terms of just overall planning and developing a baseline for where we are and where we might be going from, this period to forward. I know that there's been an emphasis also on housing. I'm opposed to what they're proposing as far as taking the barn there in the square and putting 1,500 units in there. I also showed a picture of what the impact of that would be with the 578 units on Arsenal Street that comprises the gables and also the lawn. You mentioned,
if I could just interject. So by last night, you're referring to the forum that the two candidates held at the library. And there you talked about planning as a concern of yours. And I'd love to get more into that conversation, but can you tell me just more in general, why are you running? Is it simply because you're unhappy with the way planning has happened in Watertown, or is there more than that?
It's more than that. It's a matter of the direction that this community is going at this point. And let's say the asking of or requesting me to perhaps enter the race as far as being able to, from that, this is a primary position, as you stated earlier, in terms of guiding not only the community, but also the council. And I feel like I can do a very good job in respect to both of those. I have some ideas about how it encompasses all facets of what we would be doing moving forward with this community. It is now, we had a town in the past, and it is rapidly changing, and no one is against growth. And so that what we do is we have a matter of how we approach growth.
Okay, great. We will get more into that. Mr. Sideris, welcome. Glad you could join us today. Tell us, why should voters rehire you instead of bringing back your opponent? And actually let us know, why did you run against him in the first place? Which is now 10 years ago or so. It's been a while.
Well, I don't like going back in history. I don't think there's any reason for that. So I wouldn't even think about why I did that at the time.
Mhm.
Why I continue to want to do this is the fact that working with the city council and the city manager, we've made significant strides on a number of fronts in the city of Watertown. We've taken a number of underutilized industrial properties and converted them to some apartments, some labs, some offices. We had a mixture of things, and the market has dictated where that has gone and where it's going. There are drawbacks and benefits to that. The benefits we're reaping right now is the fact that we're doing all of our schools over, and we don't have an override. We've paid down our pension liability. I believe there's 3 other cities or towns in the state that have done that. And I've had this conversation with the mayor of Newton when she was first elected, and people are amazed at how we can control things. And I think it's important that, a well-run community not only welcomes economic development, but also knows how to navigate paying their bills and making sure that those obligations are not hindering them from continuing to grow and become a better community. And, I think those are the things that I want to continue. I am very proud to be also on the chair of the school building committee. And we're about to, we've begun the process of rebuilding our high school, the second in the country, which will be net zero LEED platinum. Watertown should be proud of those things. That's what good management and good financial management and good economic development does for a community.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Younger, you mentioned in your opening comments and last night even more at the library event, that you're unhappy with the planning department. And last night you actually mentioned the planning director. You're referring to Steve Magoon, correct?
Correct.
And tell us, why is it that you're unhappy with the job that he's done, and what do you think needs to be done? Should someone else have that job?
Yes, I think the planning department should be shook up. And this is the first time I've ever said that in the entire probably 40, 50 years that I've been involved with politics in Watertown.
And why is that? What is your concern there?
Well, one of the things that we talk about in terms of business, realtors have come in and told me that what they have is a problem as far as 2 sets of rules. One of them is the matter that you can go in as a small businessman, local one that's developing. They have a different set of criteria as far as the technical systems and the other matters that they are bringing to the attention. Whereas with the large developers, they are indicating they can get whatever they might want to have. And that's one of the things that has been paramount in one of the people, minds. And the other thing is, not too long ago, and this is one of the things that has bothered me quite much. And I wasn't part of the petition of 500 people, but they had a petition there for 3 months.
A petition to do what, sir?
To have the square as far as the heights of buildings, etc.
I see.
And so that what happened is that the council on the first reading referred it to the planning board. As I mentioned before, the planning board then took it up. And one of the first things they said was, we don't know anything about 2.2. We know 2.0 and 2.4 in terms of heights. It's been in the planning department for 3 months.
So you're talking about an effort to limit the heights of buildings
right,
in the square.
exactly. The issue is not in the heights. It's a matter that what you should do is not embarrass a group of people. The technical assistance you're supposed to provide them is to, one, if there is a technical error there, to at least bring it to their attention. This is what you should have, regardless of how you're going to vote against it. You're going to either for it.
Mr. Sideris, since you lead the council, maybe you can help respond to that. But also let us know how you feel about the job Steve Magoon is doing, if you could answer both those.
Well, I'm not sure why we have a process, and we followed the process which said when we get a petition, we refer it to the planning board. That's the process that's set out in the city charter, and then it would come back to the city council for final action. So the process is not laid out by any one person, it's laid out by the city charter. I'm proud to say that, you know, we hired a city manager that has many, many years of planning experience, and his oversight of that department is beginning to take hold. He's been hiring, we have an open space planner coming. We have several opportunities to reshape the department, and I do think that that's what he's doing. We also have an advertisement out for a director of planning. So I think that, you know, to lay everything on Steve Magoon's hands, I don't think is correct, and I don't think that's proper. Have we made mistakes? Yes, I'll be the first to admit it, but I don't think there's any place in private life or public life where people don't make mistakes. But I think we're in a better place now than we have been in a long time, given the fact that, you know, the city manager brings many, many years' experience from Somerville and the other jobs that he's had as a planner.
All right. So let's talk about the planning process and specifically talk about Watertown Square. On Tuesday night, the city is going to begin a process to have a conversation about what Watertown Square should look like, a very in-depth process that's going to stretch out over many weeks. Maybe I'll start with you, Mr. Sideris. What do you think Watertown Square should look like in 15 years?
It's a very difficult place to even get to today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that in 15 years it's going to get any better. That's why I think these particular, where we have an opportunity here to potentially reshape the way we treat Watertown Square, the way we approach Watertown Square. Watertown Square has thousands of cars that go through it every day that don't live in Watertown. They're just passing through from Main Street to Galen Street to Mount Auburn Street. And, you know, that is a little bit of a problem. We also have to make sure that Watertown Square is going to become a destination. Maybe it's housing, additional businesses. I spoke last night about a potential parking garage, which we talked about for many years. I don't know what's going to come out of this plan, but I think that we're embarking on something that's needed. And, you know, they removed back then what was the rotary, and now they call them roundabouts, and someone came up with a plan where they came up with 2 roundabouts in the square. All of these things need to be considered so that we can make Watertown Square a destination for everyone.
So if you don't have a specific idea what it should be, what are the kinds of things that you think should be the priority in terms of what Watertown Square offers to people?
Well, I think there's got to be more opportunities for walking and biking, more potential for a place that you can have some passive recreation that will give you a place, you know, attract you to get to the square. It's a very busy place, and it's going to be difficult to do that. And I also think that, you know, adding housing to the area will help, you know, draw people to the businesses and to the amenities that potentially we could offer.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Younger, same question. What is your vision? What do you think Watertown Square should look like in 15 years or in the future?
I would like to see the Watertown Square being the gateway to the city. Years ago, we had an opportunity when Ron Dean was going to give us some money to purchase where the Western Verizon and some of the other buildings are there, but the council wanted commercial. One of the things that we talk about with the, let's say, immediate one of the help would be lighting. If you want to help current businesses, you can do it in terms of lighting. I think that what we should do is, and this is what I'm speaking about with planning, I think you have to walk and see what is existing. And the other is that instead of building, let's say 1,500 units over there, if you look at what that looks like on Arsenal Street, it would be prohibitive as far as that site. What I feel like that they should do is negotiate with MBTA, have that as green space so they can complement the Delta area. And then what we can do is, I would like to see it really more in line with looking like the old New England. And there's opportunities to do that. We have the CPA money, we have others, that we can actually shape that so that it is not only a gateway, but even if we're negotiating with MBTA, we could negotiate with the state as far as the let's say Route 16 on Mount Auburn Street going out from, the Main Street to Summer Street. And perhaps
What are you actually hoping to negotiate? I'm not following that.
what I'm saying is that what we could do is have parking on one side. We could enlarge and widen the sidewalks so that whatever is down there, whether you were putting some new or whatever, they have an opportunity to put tables outside and have it so that people can walk and be able to enjoy, because that's one of the things that limits it, is that we don't have wide enough sidewalks. Like in Somerville, where the manager comes from, you can see the difference in terms of how wide the streets are, but of course they're not on major, highways like Route 16 is. But I mean, there's
Mr. Younger, so Mr. Sideris mentioned the need for more housing, or the benefits of more housing in the square. Is that what you think should happen there too? And if not there, where does the city accommodate the units that are required by the MBTA communities law?
is not required that you can't use existing, and I would use the existing properties that are close to, it's part of it is within a half a mile. That's one of the requirements. The multifamily is 15 per acre. We have it so that with Concord, they have 28.5 square miles. Watertown is 4 square mile area. And there's no requirement that they have to put additional housing there.
So
there's no requirement in terms of also how much you have to pay for rent.
Right.
If we had a means test down there that it also incorporates and mandates that developers actually provide affordable housing, that'd be different. If you go to Gables and you also go to Elon, the minimum payment you have for a studio is $2,000. And that is not what I consider affordable. I
want to just make sure I understand. Are you suggesting that we try to use property that's already multifamily and sneak that in as part of the requirement of the law?
I think the issue of sneaking is not correct.
Okay, what are you suggesting? I'm not sure.
I'm saying that you look at the law and you will see that this is appropriate, is not prohibited by having existing properties included in your overall design of the site, okay? When I indicated that to the manager, I said we should be talking about, the planning director, I said we should be talking about different options that we provide people, even if it's a matter, even with this study of the square. There's more than one way of even looking at it. And so you provide options and you look at what is the more one that is makes and more reasonable and makes the most sense. So that's all I'm indicating, is that there's a number of ways that you get to the same point.
Okay. Mr. Sideris, I'd be interested in your thoughts there and how you think the city should respond to the MBTA communities law.
It's a law. It was created, and we as a municipality have to follow the law to the letter of the law. I don't know where Mr. Younger thinks we can negotiate. It's always worth a try, but it is a law. And as far as I can tell, anybody that's a law-abiding citizen needs to follow the law, or there are ramifications. And we've been told by the state, and there are a couple of cities that are fighting this, that they're going to have ramifications by not following the law. So I would venture to say that, I'm intrigued by the fact that we're talking about potentially negotiating, but I'm not sure where that would fit in.
Right. So even if it wasn't a law idea, or maybe you can just speak to the concept. Does it make sense that the state is requiring communities to rezone to allow for more multifamily housing? And does it make sense for Watertown to be looking for ways to do that?
Well, I can't, the law was created without consulting any of us. So I don't know, it's difficult for me to answer that question. They wanted us to be on the Belmont side by the railroad where single family houses, it would never work. So we chose to say this would be an area we could be looking at. I think incorporating this Watertown Square study that we're doing and all of that may be able to help us guide us in that direction. The law requires us to create zoning to make it easier for people to take their properties and make housing out of them near a transit station. So that's what Watertown Square is.
Yeah.
And I do think there are some opportunities there to do that.
Right, and I would just say that the law was written by the legislature, which is all of us, or represents all of us. So I do think there's some input there. But let's turn on to Mount Auburn Street, which is going to undergo significant construction for an extended period of time. It could be really detrimental to the small businesses, restaurants, shops, and other businesses along the street. Mr. Younger, any idea how we can help businesses during that time period?
What I've heard from different ones is that the narrowing of that would be an adverse effect on those businesses down there. And I think that I can't tell you offhand, I'm not a planner, okay? What I would do is bring in the people that can properly plan for it. In fact, when I was in the bank over there at Watertown Savings Bank, one of the things they talked about, even with the bike path, it doesn't really make sense in terms of the number they said. But, you do the studies, you find out how is the best way to accommodate both parties. I know that if you go further down to where the crossing is for getting in by Belmont, et cetera, you're in a lane that is for the bus only. You're supposed to be on the other side left of that. And then you go around the corner and you have to go over to the bus line because of the fact that in the left lane, you have to make a left turn. You can also see it in the traffic engineers are ones that I don't know what school they went to. But going back to what we were talking about, that I would have to follow up, and if there's a new planner, I would senior planner that's going to be there, I would have to see exactly how they're going to approach it and whether it's consistent with what the owners would say. I think one of the things is that we should be collaborating with them.
So I'm actually interested in knowing how we help our merchants through what is going to be a very disruptive time period. And it's not so much in the planner's hands, I don't think. I think it's in the hands of either how we market it or how we convince people to come there or make it easier for people. Mr. Sideris, any thoughts about how we help our businesses during this struggle and this difficult time?
Is that for me?
Yes, please.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
I don't think Mr. Younger understands that this is already done. It's designed. We did our easement votes to take some properties along the corridor. It's ready for bid. The construction is well underway. The design is done. So that's not an issue here. The issue here is how we maintain the small businesses from Watertown Square to Coolidge, through Coolidge Square and to the Cambridge line. We have to be able to make sure that they have access during this time. We have to be able to make sure that people that are working on this project aren't parking near their businesses. We have to make sure that there's signage and anything we can do to help them maintain. We have to make sure there's going to be walkways. We have to find ways. It's going to be a major effort, and it's going to be close to 3.5 to 4 years to get this done. So as a small business person, you have to make sure that they have ways to have their customers continue to do business with them. And that's going to be a very top priority of the administration, the city council, and anybody that's involved in this.
Right. Thank you. So let's talk a little more about.
Can I go back
businesses
with the rebuttal week?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things is that I'm quite aware of what easements and other activities. What I was talking about is being in a collaborative manner, that what we do is move forward and we ask the different owners of those businesses how we can help them, because they have some ideas too. And I think that's what we need to do, is reach out more to those businesses down there and let us help them, because they're going to describe in better detail than we would know in terms of what their needs are. And that's what I'm saying, is that you need to talk to the people that are most affected by these decisions.
Right. Well, I can tell you one thing that any small business owner or any business owner will tell you is that would help would be, do not raise my taxes. But right now there's a home rule petition, as you both know. that would allow the city to alter the tax shift, which would put more of the tax burden onto the backs of businesses. I'm wondering your thoughts, and maybe I'll start with you, Mr. Sideris, about how we kind of mitigate the harm that raising the taxes further on small businesses would do by the desire to trying to keep the taxes low for residents.
Well, it is always a balance, and we've had, for many years, we were able to shift the way we were shifting until the growth changed the formula that was, agreed upon back in the day. I do think that we do have to take care of our residents as well. And I do think that we have to potentially, if we could go back to the 175 shift, that we have to find a way to, work with these owners to see what we can do to mitigate those increases. Maybe it's, some type of a grant. Maybe it's some type of a work-off program. I don't know, but we are going to have to look at that as well. There are a number of things. It's not like we didn't do this before. We've done that. We have a history of doing it. So I'm not as concerned about doing it. I'm just concerned that I agree with you. We have to be concerned with how we make sure it doesn't affect the people that are running these businesses, that are renting these businesses in a manner that they get up and leave. And we have to find ways to mitigate that.
Yeah. Mr. Younger, your thoughts about that?
Well, what I would approach it in this manner is that the CPA money is a surtax on all, not only residential, but also business. And I think the time frame is 5 years. Could be an effort to not renew the CPA and that surtax. That would be immediate, improvement on what the bottom line would be in terms of business, because what we talk about is top line, and then we want to have the lower line so you have a profit. So what we do is try to maximize the amount of profit that's brought to the bottom line, because that can only help the community. I'm aware of that because not only have I been in the public service for 25 years prior to going into Burger King business, I know how that shift. But as Marcus said, we've had that shift before.
So let me just to be clear,
there's
CPA...
a residential rate and also a commercial rate. And what you're describing is the burden of the commercial rate had been increased commensurate with the residential. That's what I would assume you're saying.
Yeah, but I'm asking, how do we help small businesses through?
What I'm saying is that what we do is help them by eliminate that surtax, and that'd be immediate increase in profits for you. And also it would make a difference in individuals who are talking about how we have no evidence of any with the growth that we had in town here. No one has had any break in terms of their taxes. That would be one way of providing everyone a break.
Let me make sure everyone understands what the CPA does. The CPA is a surcharge that provides funds for affordable housing, for open space and historic preservation. You're suggesting that the city stop the CPA, repeal the CPA?
And the 5 year, it does not have to be renewed, what I'm saying.
Right.
And I think the 5 year is coming up.
Okay. Mr. Sideris, would you favor repealing the CPA or not renewing it?
I have not even considered that at this point. We're just getting some projects done with CPA funds, and I do think there are more opportunities. And it's not something that I have put on my radar to consider at this point. If there's people that think that they want to put that on the ballot, they're welcome to do that. I just don't know that amount of reduction in taxes is going to make that significant of a difference in a person's way of life.
Right, and then I'll ask you, Mr. Younger, that fund has provided or does give money for affordable housing and historic preservation and open spaces. It just mean we don't put money aside for those things for a period of time?
Well, if
I'm not certain that they have been used for affordable housing at this point. I think they've been used for other purposes, but we have quite a surplus of, I think they said about $25 million or so as far as that CPA monies. So that if we're going to address that as far as affordable housing, I think we can at least identify what we're going to do with those monies. If there's a matter that we're going to increase it and have public housing, use part of it, and then get the other monies from, because the feds are coming out with additional money now for public housing. And so we could start it, we could complement it by grant monies from the federal government, and that would help us with affordable housing. So I think that we can do both. The issue is that I think it has to come up for renewal after 5 years. And I think we're on the verge of that 5-year period.
Mr. Sideris, your thoughts about the affordable housing component of what the CPA funds, as well as the other things, and losing that?
Well, the affordable housing component, there are some I understand the Watertown Housing Authority and others are potentially working on some applications to this, to the CPC. We also have established an affordable housing trust in the community, and we've been adding $250,000 a year through the operating budget to that. So we're in the process, I would say, of trying to address affordable housing in a number of different ways. It's not just the CPC money, it's other ways to do that. And I do think that, there are opportunities there as well. It's just making sure that we find the right project, the right team, the right approach to be able to say to the city council after a recommendation from the Community Preservation Committee that this is a good project and this is where we should be spending our money on the housing portion.
Great, thank you. Let me now change subjects a little bit and talk about the life science sector and the labs in Watertown. The growth of the life science sector contributed really significantly to being able to build this high school and rebuild the other schools, as well as other things. And as Mr. Sideris mentioned, the pension fund. But now the life science sector is suffering. Labs are not being rented and at the level they used to be. There's a glut in the market, an oversupply across the region of life science labs. I'm wondering if there's anything that the town should be doing to help promote and work with the owners of life science labs in Watertown to make them more viable. And maybe I'll start with you, Mr. Sideris, on this one.
Well, I do a lot of homework on this in this particular sector. And we all know that this particular sector is suffering and struggling right now. We have a project on Pleasant Street, a project on Waltham Street that have asked for extensions because there isn't a market that they were expecting. Timing is everything in real estate. And, if you don't time things properly, whether it be housing or office or, in this particular case, life science, you might miss the market. But everybody that I've been speaking to on this, they say at some point in the next few years, this will come back. The people on Galen Street are suffering. They built this building, and from my understanding is they still don't have tenants. So we have to find a way to make sure that these buildings don't fall into disrepair while working with them to try to help and see, how we can do that. I speak regularly to a number of owners of these properties, and, they're always looking that, if there are opportunities for us to maybe not raise taxes as much as we should, or, don't provide, don't add additional fees. We've added linkage fees, we've added a lot of things because we were in a very robust economy. And, I will say that I've predicted to these people and to others that at some point this is going to come to an end, and then hope it doesn't come to a crashing end. And maybe we'll have to convert these buildings into something else. Maybe we'll convert the building on Galen Street to housing. There's another, way out there idea, but these are, possibilities that we potentially could be looking at.
Let me just follow up there. Do you think the linkage fees were a mistake to approve them at this point?
Well, I don't think they were a mistake. I do think that the timing of this is we're not going to get the benefit that we should be getting, we would have been getting if this was done several years ago.
Great, thank you. Mr. Younger, same question. How can we help the life science landlords and that sector continue to be a strong part of Watertown's economy?
Well, I worked for 25 years with the Center for Disease Control, and NIH was adjunct to our business. NIH is the one that is primarily providing the grant monies for all these labs. I was incorporated with Boston Research Institute. I'm getting my tongue tied because my mouth is dry again. I think that you should have I'm going to recommend to Charlie next week that they should have probably water next to them. But at any rate, that money dries up. And when I talk with the manager, when I first had an opportunity to sit down with me, in fact, we met in a neutral area. We talked about that because that has been my experience, that the infusion of money is given there initially, but it's not long-term, and NIH can cut off money at any point. Usually the grant is given for either a 3-5 year or whatever, and you have to look at it in terms of how you sustain yourself. And I'm not sure that they really were farsighted enough to see how you're on a bandwagon, you're moving forward, and that day comes when that money dries up. But we would have to be kind of creative. I don't know what they're actually the research encompasses. I would look to see what the research they're involved in. I would give priority to those who are doing most, and also I would look to see whether or not, even if we gave them money, how they would survive or not. And I think it's important in any business, because what you do is you see what the viability of that business is, and also what the importance it is to the community. And so and not only the community, but in community, I'm talking about most of these can be doing research that has not only, let's say, the United States at hand, but it could be worldwide as far as.
Let me ask you the question this way. Let's say a company that has a life science product comes and knocks on your door and says, I'm thinking of moving to Watertown, but I'm also thinking maybe I should be in Cambridge, maybe I should be in Waltham, maybe I should be in Belmont or whatever. What would you tell them? Why should they be in Watertown? What would you offer them or help them why they should set up shop here instead of somewhere else?
I think it depends. If we're having the problems that we're having with the life science buildings now, maybe you can have them work within and cohabitate with the existing ones. There's no reason though why they can't, let's say, cohabit those spaces. It would then make it so that both are more viable than they are now. And so I would look at different opportunities as to why they should come to Watertown. Watertown is a great community. The location is what you talk about with realty.
Right. I would see
life
science companies are doing proprietary work and can't share their space. But Mr. Sideris, what would you say to somebody who's thinking about whether they should locate in Watertown or a different community?
Well, I will say a couple of things. First of all, in doing the research and the things that I've studied about labs, they like to be near each other, and they like to have potential, interaction with employees, or maybe potential interaction of ideas. Watertown is, as Mr. Younger said, location, close to everything. We're quite less taxing than Cambridge, maybe not so as much as Waltham or some of the other cities and towns that you mentioned. But I do think that location is very key. Being near other labs is another key. And, Watertown has welcomed these labs. And that's why we're potentially, we're doing very well right now. We've had people that have gotten hundreds of millions of dollars in grants that their technology was done in Watertown. Their discoveries were made in Watertown. There's a company right down near Watertown Square, Watricity, who's always in the news. I mean, it's a great place to be, and I think people can see that, and I think that they like the opportunity to be able to potentially talk to other people in some similar type industries.
Right, and I would suggest to you both that the other advantage we have is we've got great restaurants and amenities and arsenal yards and a lot of other things that are good for your employees to be here. But let's move on. I have a question about,
We go
so
back to
as
the
City
labs.
Council President.
Can we
Go
go
ahead.
back to the labs for a moment? One of
Yeah,
the things
sure.
that, we asked the planning director how many labs are there in Watertown. He did not know, so he said he'd get back to me. He can get the information. I don't
Okay.
know if you can do planning based on if you can get back. I would have a laptop there with an Excel spreadsheet or whatever to go press a button and identify. We need to
Right.
know what we have available, and we can then help them. And if we can then, and we can invite more that way, because at least we know what we're doing and where we are.
Well, I would imagine it's hard to know exactly how many labs because it depends how a developer divides their space, but I bet they know how many square feet there are zoned for labs. But I want to move on. We're running low on
They
time.
could be inventory.
So you both have in the position of City Council President, many people speak before you. They come and ask in a public hearing for various things. Person A might come up there and say, "I've lived in Watertown for 50 years and I believe blah XXXXX." Person B comes up there and says, "I've just moved to Watertown and I believe XXX." Does someone who's lived here longer have more weight in your mind when you're listening to their opinions and concerns about an issue? Mr. Sideris, why don't you start?
No, everybody has an opportunity to come in and give us their thoughts and ideas. And we welcome thoughts and ideas because that person that has moved in a few months ago may be requesting us to look at something that we may not have thought of. So I think it's an opportunity that we not only embrace the people that have been here for a long time, but we welcome people that have been here for a short time and incorporate them and ask them, to be part of our community and maybe join a board or a commission or do some volunteer work. And I think that's how you get more people to become involved. And, I still maintain that Watertown is a welcoming community that it has no problem with differences of how long someone has been here. Back in the day, everybody said, "Oh, you're not a townie, it doesn't work." I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it's really changed a lot, and I think it's really important and critical that we take those new people and the new ideas and give them some weight and listen to them. And I think we do a good job listening, and that's part of the most important thing that we do is listen.
Thank you, Mr. Younger. Same question.
Well, I've run on the platform of He Listens for a number of years. I will admit that if you know someone, you're likely to listen a little bit more to them. I have always felt like I try to have a balance, and I try to look at it from the other person's perspective. And so that in that regard, I'm going to treat each equally in terms of the merits of whatever they're discussing with me. One of the things I want to do is even if they're new, it's not a matter that you completely discard. It's not a matter that you discard it if they're considered a townie. I mean, I'm not a townie, but I've been here for a number of years. And so you listen to both sides, and often there's just a matter of balancing. It may be opposite viewpoints as far as any one project. And so what you do is look to see which one is a better project.
Thank you. I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to give you each 2 minutes for a closing statement. But before we do that, I wanted to know if you could invite anyone over to your home, dead or alive, to come over for dinner, someone in the past history or currently alive, over for dinner. Who would you invite over? Mr. Sideris, you go first.
President John F. Kennedy.
Very good. Mr. Younger?
I'd probably invite Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
Very good. Excellent answers. Okay, so now we'd like to ask you, but first, thank you both very much for your time and your participation. Remind everyone that the election is on November 7th with early voting starting sooner than that. But I'm going to ask Mr. Younger if you could go first. You have 2 minutes for a closing statement.
I forgot last night, my wife reminded me because she happened to be in the audience for once, and she said you did not ask people if they would consider voting for you. So at this point, I'm asking people to consider voting for me. The other is that I want to point out that before I went on the council, the city, our town was considered anti-business. We changed that when I became council president. I expect to continue that as far as being pro-business as well as balance it with the needs of the community. So that is the main thing I wanted to emphasize, that it has been anti-business. In fact, what I'd like to do, as we did before, I shouldn't say we did it, but the chamber did it. They had a person there from the chamber that would, the executive director would come into the meetings. He would sit there and he would provide us what the business people in the community needed. He would do that on at least a monthly basis, coming in, listening to me, and presenting what their needs are and ideas and how we could help them. And I would invite a person, even if it's not the executive director, to have someone there at the meeting so that we can have a better connection with the business community. And then we could solve some of the issues that you're talking about now with this taxes, or whatever needs are in terms of the Coolidge Square and the Mount Auburn development that is going to impact the businesses. I think if we hear more from it, we can respond to it a lot easier.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Sideris, your turn. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you to the chamber for hosting us today. Thank you for the great questions and the discussion. I'm gonna also, as I did last evening, ask people to consider me to continue in my role as council president and member of the school committee. I do think that we've made a lot of strides and we can continue to do so. But I also want to add that because I'm here, you know, and you're hosting this, I do think that businesses play an important role in any community, whether it be in Newton or Waltham or Watertown. And I do think that we can always do a better job outreach and promoting of Watertown as a place that businesses want to come to, a place where people want to do business. And you know, we will be working over the next several months in trying to do some of that outreach. And I think that's a really key and important part to a good community, because not everybody that owns a business here lives here, nor should they, because sometimes it just doesn't fit into their lifestyle. But I think when they're investing their money, redoing a restaurant or buying a liquor license or, you know, setting up something new, it's important that we welcome them and try to help them. So I do think that, you know, the opportunities are there. Look forward to continuing to work with your organization and other businesses that you are aware of. So thank you again very much.
Thank you both very much for your time. And once again, thank you for your past service and for your willingness to continue to serve. We much appreciate it, and appreciate everyone who's watched today and everyone who will be watching the recording. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep.